Hey everyone, and welcome to our video on story scavenger hunts. But before we get started, here's a little joke for you. What's the easiest fruit to drink? A strawberry. This activity is a kinesthetic activity, and it can be done as a pre-reading, a reading, or a post-reading activity. The key idea is to get students up out of their chairs and moving around the classroom. One of the reasons I really like this activity is that everyone can do it. It's an activity that everyone does together, so there's a kind of whole class momentum that builds up as the time goes on. Students can choose to work alone, in pairs, or together in small groups. Not only can everyone do this activity, anyone can do it. This activity is perfect for differentiation, and I'm going to show you a few ways that I do it with my class. Okay, so this activity can be done by anyone, by everyone, and it gets students up and out of their chairs. But how does it work? First, every student gets a picture worksheet. I use 18 boxes. This just seems to work out perfectly for the amount of time I want to spend with the activity. These 18 boxes are filled with pictures from the story. These pictures are jumbled up into a random order. Then the teacher writes or types out the story on cards. I do mine on a 3x6 grid in Microsoft Word. Then I post the story cards all around the classroom. Some I put in plain sight, some I hide a little bit, and some I make a little bit more difficult to find. I always feel like the scavenger hunt aspect is the most important part, because that builds excitement and keeps students curious about where they should be looking, and makes the activity more engaging. Once students find the card, they read the story on the card. Then they find the picture that matches the story on their picture worksheet, and write the number from the story card on their picture worksheet in the small box provided. When they're finished, I just simply have them sit down, because the gap between the student who is finished first and the student who is finished last is never that wide, usually 1 or 2 minutes at the most. A really good way to keep students on track and keep them motivated and moving along quickly is to keep a running timer on the television or on the front desk. And another thing I like to do is have some music playing in the background, music that has a sense of urgency to it. I personally like to use a loop of the Mission Impossible theme song. That really gets my students moving. Once everyone's finished or the time has run out, we check the answers together as a whole class. When students are done, I like to check the answers one by reading each story card myself and then having students find the picture and double check from the answers on the board. I'll usually just draw a blank box and then fill in the numbers as I go along. It'll usually end up looking something like this. A quick note, if you were using this as a task completion activity, you could have the students who are finished check their work by themselves from an answer sheet, and then move on to the next activity. Just to recap, here's how the story scavenger hunt works. The students get a picture worksheet, and the teacher hides the story around the classroom. Students find a card, read it, find a matching picture on their worksheet, write the number in their box, and then check it. The directions in the picture you see are the ones that I wrote on my board. Now you might ask yourself, what am I doing during this time? What's the teacher's job? And to be honest, if you did your work beforehand, you don't have to do anything. You can sit back, relax, and let them do all the work. But if you want to get involved and walk around, monitor, assist the students who might not be such great readers, or try to help the slower students catch up, that's also fine. But as I said, your main task is preparation. If you work hard before the class, you'll work stress-free during the class. And here's how you do it. The story cards will have a sentence. And for your better students, that's all they'll need. You won't need to provide any other assistance. But if you want to make this activity work for everyone, there's a few things that you can do to help them. You can highlight the key words, like you see in this picture, and then draw a picture dictionary. You could also highlight the new vocabulary that you want students to remember. For some of the more difficult words, you could use a picture dictionary and a translation, like you see here. And as with any activity, the more effort you put into it, the more your students will get out of it. So I could have drawn a real simple, easy jetpack, but I chose to put a little bit of detail and add some color to it. When students saw this jetpack in my class, I heard a lot of, "Ooh, wow," and a lot of questions of, "Teacher, did you draw this?" And that was well worth the time and effort. I love this activity, and one of the things that I did to make me love it even more was teach my students the term scoot. And scoot means moving at a pace between walking and running. It's like running without picking up your feet, a fast shuffle. So if you teach them this term and tell them, don't walk, don't run, but scoot, it adds that sense of urgency that's necessary. And one final word before we go. I've done this activity a number of times with students aged 9 to 13, grades 3, 4, 5, and 6. And in every grade, every class, this activity was a hit. So I'm sure if you do it in your classroom, your students will love it too. Give it a try. Go for it, and let me know how it works.